Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. The Hitchhiker Effect was shot in Shenandoah County, and it makes its Virginia premiere August 9th to open the Richmond Film Network's Indie Fest. It's only one of the films being shown at RFN's quarterly festival, which takes place at the Park RVA. And I'll have a link to it on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
I really want to acknowledge the power of both of these films and basically being able to tell stories and empower people who once probably felt that their life would be a threat in telling these stories back in those time periods, to give power to voice in these films today.
That was one of today's guests, Brandy Kellum, talking about one effect of the two films we're discussing today. Her film is titled Uprooted and tells the overlooked story of a once vibrant black community in Newport News that was demolished to make way for the development of Christopher Newport University. Joining her is Ty Cooper, who was on the show in 2022. He's back to talk about his new doc, The Price of Resistance, Salah Uddin, an American agitator, about this revered civil rights agitator, community leader, and former Pittsburgh city councilman. Both of these shorts will be screened as a sideline to the Indie Shorts Film Festival, which runs in Charlottesville in March. This screening will take place Saturday, August 9th at 7:30 p.m. at the Vinegar Hill Theater in Charlottesville, and I'll have a link on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
Sifter Review of the Week.
Locked on Hulu. Bill Skarsgård plays a down-on-his-luck dad who decides to break into a fancy car. Actually, he didn't break in because it was unlocked, which is the plan of the car's owner, Anthony Hopkins, to punish thieves. The first part of the film is spent with Skarsgård locked in the car and Hopkins' constantly threatening voice on the phone. Luckily, Skarsgård is a good actor because it's all about his reactions for most of the film. Hopkins does eventually show up, and his role is the typical closed-off Brit. Until near the end, there's virtually no tension, just a puzzle to solve, with a few surprises to keep it interesting. Skarsgård's performance helps make this guessing game stimulating. By the way, the camera use in one tight space of the car uses a combination of technology and a breakaway car to get incredible interior angles that never been seen before. I gave Locked 2.5 out of 5 stars. Brandy Kellum, I want to welcome you to Sifter for Ear, and Ty Cooper, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've got two short films to talk about, and the first thing I want to know is, how do you know each other?
Ty, I'll let you take that one away.
Well, I used to babysit Brandy when she was a little kid. Nah. I saw her film at the Virginia Film Festival. I'm the outreach and promotion consultant for the festival.
Right.
And I saw the film and I was really like, you know what, this is a story that needs to be shared again. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, we may have a sold out screening, but we got to realize when you have in the area 200-something thousand people, and your sold-out screening, which did great, it's 100-something people.
Right.
It's a lot more people who have not seen your film. So I just felt as though it had a lot more life to it. So I reached out to her, got introduced to her by one of the programmers, and we just just hit it off. And she allowed me to screen it at my film festival, at the Indie Short Film Festival in March. So that's how we met through the art form that we love, that we both love. So
great.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned briefly the Indie Short Film Festival. Give us a little short nutshell of what that is, and then we'll talk about these two movies.
I work for Sundance. I've been working for Sundance since 2015. So I try to emulate the best. But we have, with the live performances, but then when we get down to education and so forth, we have 5 panel discussions. We had an actors workshop that was moderated by Rosalind Coleman Williams. She's out of New York, and she worked with Meryl Streep, Halle Berry, and many others. We had 110 short films screened from 14 different countries.
Wow.
Documentaries, animation, narratives, shorts, and so forth. We had Q&As after each screening block. We had a Sunday brunch awards, and within the festival, we have a screenwriting competition. It's a really good festival. It's a 3-day festival. It happens every March, and next year, 2026, is March 20th through the 22nd.
We'll get you back on to talk about that more. But let's not ignore Brandy here. She's sitting here quietly listening, smiling. So, Brandy, what's your background? I know you're an Emmy winner, so tell us how you got that Emmy and what your background is, how you got in the biz.
Let me say something. Let me add.
I knew he was going to do that.
2 Emmys. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 for the V. 2 up, 2 down. Virginia.
Yes, I love that.
2. She got 2.
Yes. So yes, I do. I have the honor of having 2 Emmys. The first one, actually, I was very surprised about. Both I was surprised for. And I'll get into that, explaining that in a second. But my background is mostly in broadcast journalism. I am from Virginia, so I was born and raised here, and actually did not hear about the story regarding Christopher Newport's expansion into a Black community until I had already moved away and started my career in national media. And at that point, I had worked for MSNBC for about 7 years. And then I left and moved to CBS News. I worked in New York City and both DC at CBS, experienced a lot of different impactful storytelling while I was working for the CBS DC Bureau. I covered everything from the 2020 presidential election to the police killing of George Floyd. I was in Minneapolis for 5 weeks doing that.
Wow.
And I truly think that all those experiences is what led me to this point, because at some point in 2021, I want to say, I was looking to do something more with my career, and I had talked to my supervisors about it. I felt like investigative journalism was going to be the route I would take because that felt like the most common sense approach to doing impactful work. I learned about the first fellowship I got to start the reporting for Uprooted a week before the application was due.
Wow.
And so I came across this Columbia University fellowship. I just said, what the heck? Like, I'm just going to apply for it. I mean, what do I have to lose at this point?
Sure.
In that week time, I actually discovered the story about Shoe Lane. I did not even know about the story before I started applying for the fellowship. So it was a very deep, intense week of research, making phone calls, developing sources within a week's time to put my application together. And then fast forward, that became a fellowship with ProPublica, which then eventually became this big investigative piece about how universities across the country have displaced Black and Brown communities, especially in Virginia. When you think about the significance of this state and how it is adjacent to a lot of historical aspects about our country.
Oh, you were living in Norfolk when
No,
you...
actually, I was still working at CBS when I first started the fellowship.
Okay. Where
with
did you live in
Columbia.
Virginia?
Oh, I'm from Norfolk, Portsmouth area.
Okay, so you were
Virginia,
from
yes.
that area. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I was right across the water from, which is also crazy to me that I didn't even know this story because I was right across the water and didn't even know the history.
Now, both of these, of course, they're shorts. They're under 30 minutes. Was this originally broadcast on WHRO?
Yeah, so
or-
it was originally broadcast on WHRO. We had a partnership with ProPublica, so we published it simultaneously. They published it online and it was broadcast on WHRO's platform. And, a lot of work went into creating that piece. So it was about a year's worth of additional reporting and collaboration to create that documentary.
Brandy, why don't you tell us briefly what the film's about?
Yeah, so Uprooted is about the history of displacement from the lens of higher education. It shows how colleges and universities have played an active role in displacing Black and Brown communities through the use of several tools, including urban renewal, eminent domain. And it shows one case scenario of a Black community in Newport News, Virginia, which had very strong roots dating back to the late 1800s, so thinking post-slavery, that had to come up against various institutions from their local government to the justice system, as well as university influence in their community to try and fight to save their community. But ultimately, the community is destroyed by the college.
One of the most interesting things about this documentary is the Johnsons, the family you feature. They still basically live on campus.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just said, I'm not moving.
Yes, they're still there. Actually, that was the most shocking thing to me. And that's what really led me to jump into this story very deeply. When I found out there were still 5 houses left, you have to imagine this community had at one point over 100 or so residences, right? And the thing that really got me was the fact that it seemed like what people knew about this story wasn't the full narrative of what happened to this community. It stopped at 1960s, right?
Oh,
but
wow.
nobody told what happened after 1960 up to present day. And the fact that I and you also, are shocked by the fact that there are still houses left, that part of the story is just as important as well because it shows the resilience, but it also shows the systemic oppression that these people, these residents, this Black community was up against for a long period of time. Not just the 1960s, but over the last 60 years.
So obviously Christopher Newport College, now university, is a big part of this. How about getting them involved? I know Tribble was not involved, yet you did have Santoro, a former president. Were they willing to talk to you and be helpful, or did you have to fight for that.
Tribble was also very much involved in the displacement of the community, even though he was not a part of the documentary.
Right.
And so we were surprisingly able to get a former university president to be on camera for this interview.
And he readily owned up to it. I mean, it was amazing. He said, hey, we did this.
Yes, yeah.
And how did that go over with CNU?
I don't know how exactly it went over with CNU, but I do know that after that interview and we published, there was definitely a PR wall up. Whenever I would reach out to anyone from that point on at the college, they were like, no, we have to get approval. And then it would pretty much be like, we're not going to do anything right now, basically.
Right.
So I got it, you know.
Yeah.
You got to contact legal.
Of course, always. So Ty, let's talk a little bit about Salahuddin and how you found him.
So Annette Banks, she was the director of Freedom House Ambulance, which was a documentary in Pittsburgh, which covered the first EMT service in the nation.
Footnote.
I actually interviewed Annette Banks about her film Freedom House Ambulance, The First Responders, in 2023, and I'll have a link to where you can hear it on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Salahuddin was in that film, talk about the Hill District, which is identical to what Brandy's film is about, you know, the uprooting, the raising of the Hill District in Pittsburgh, which is where August Wilson used to live at. So she told me that she had this story that she would like to do about this gentleman named Salahuddin. She asked me would I do it with her. And we obtained the life rights from Salahuddin, and we did the film.
So Ty, give us a little description of The Price of Resistance, Salahuddin, an American agitator, what that's about.
An untold story about a gentleman who was courageous, who really was a change maker, who wanted to make a difference. And he was bitten by the bug when he saw Martin Luther King Jr. doing the March on Washington when he was a teenager. And that's what really motivated him to really jump into the civil rights movement. But then, you know, every good deed often comes with a price to pay for it, particularly in the 60s. And that price was that he was targeted by the FBI under the counterintelligence program. But then also later on, they did neutralize him in a way, but he was later redeemed by Obama because Obama gave him a presidential pardon. Really, that's what the film is about.
It's all exhibited in black and white. Obviously, you could have shot it in color and made it. What was the reason for going all black and white?
We toggled between doing color for present day and doing black and white for the past.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional.
That's traditional. But then, you know, she even stated that she said, you know what, let's just do black and white. I said, normally, if I normally do black and white at the final output, I would film it in a different way where my contrasts are really clear. But I said, you know what, let me just shoot a color just in case we change our mind, as filmmakers often do. And we decided just keep it black and white. We think it really lent to the 60s. It just really lent to it well. Although we have present interviews, but we have so much B-roll footage because, you know, like a documentary, the golden rule is 70% B-roll, 30% A, and maybe even less than that. So I just say, you know what, let me shoot it with anamorphic lenses because I really wanted that wide format, which is different than back in the day, back in the 60s.
Right.
But we also had the black and white to represent the nostalgic
in
the days.
There's an FBI agent in there too. That's kind of an integral part.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did you get him to do that? And was there any pushback, or was he said, "Hey, I'll be glad to do this"? Yeah,
no pushback. He likes to really tell his story. He appeared in his book. So he was interviewed by this gentleman, and the author of that book is a friend of a friend. So one day I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, you know, I don't want to have an advocacy piece. I need someone that's on the other side. Advocacy pieces are fine, but I need this documentary to be really a true form documentary where you have these various sides. And I need a fanboy of Hoover.
Footnote.
He's referring to J. Edgar Hoover, the notorious head of the FBI for 48 years.
She said, you know what? I have an autograph signing at my venue from this author who interviewed an FBI agent. I don't know if he can get him for you or not. So I reached out to him. He connected me to Sisu, you know, the gentleman, the FBI agent. And my partner and I, Annette Banks and I, we went down to Lynchburg, Tennessee. We went to his farm and interviewed him, you know, at his house.
Let's go back to you, Brandy, and ask you, what's next for you?
Yeah, so I'm actually back at Columbia University again.
Ah,
I am in now my fourth fellowship, not with them, but just total, right? And so I've been granted a nice sum of money to continue this reporting that I've done in Virginia and to expand it into the state because currently the state is, because of the film and the reporting, looking at, they've sanctioned a commission through the legislative body to look at colleges across the state and more broadly and how they have displaced Black communities specifically.
right.
So with my fellowship from Columbia, I'll be looking at other universities in the state and probably also looking at universities outside of Virginia to create a body of work, because that really is my goal. Ultimately, I would like to create a body of work around this topic. It's something that I think is important and it's a part of our history. And the fact that this narrative has already changed things in the state, people are looking at this
Yeah.
very seriously. I think it's important to continue this work.
And how about you, Ty? What's next for you?
Well, right now we are still pushing this film because the film is new. So we
Right.
are pushing the film. We're trying to have it into some film festivals. We didn't create the film for film festivals because it's a 30-minute piece. And you know how it comes down to film festival, when it's a short film, programmers like to put the small films together, like
Sure,
a 15
yeah.
minute, 12-minute, 8 minutes, and kind of. So we didn't make it for the film festivals, but we know some film festivals would like it. So we're going to push it to some film festivals. We doing the screenings ourselves, like I did. We just did one in Pittsburgh. But also, I am writing another short. But also, I'm extending a short that was not finished to a feature. For the next 2 years or so, I think I'm going to be pushing this film. We also want to raise money to shoot the feature film because we have so much footage. So he has a lot of work that's not covered in the film. This film is about his life story, but it's bigger than his life story. This film is also about how the FBI counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, really destroyed people's lives.
You said something very important earlier, and I really want to underscore this, is that I really want to acknowledge the power of both of these films and basically being able to tell stories and empower people who once probably felt that their life would be at threat in telling these stories back in those time periods, to give power to voice in these films today. Because especially as you and I, as people of color, we feel that these stories are important, but I think it's even more powerful when we can access our background and experience to then empower others to tell their stories.
Absolutely.
And also the fact that in both of our films, we talk to people who were from older generations. I think that is equally as important to listen to those voices that, sometimes people overlook because they think maybe sometimes older people don't have anything to offer to younger.
Yeah.
And I think both cases show that the older generation that lived through these past systems of oppression still have stories to tell, but they also can teach us about how to carry ourselves in today's climate. And I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Brandy, you are so accurate with that statement. When Salahuddin left Pittsburgh in his early 20s to go to Mississippi to fight racism, he wasn't there just to fight racism. He was there to fight voter suppression. So today, when you have people who say voting doesn't matter, I'm like, yo, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
Nah, man, people died.
Yes,
died.
they did.
3 civil rights activists were buried by the KKK for fighting voter suppression. Yeah, I think we have to listen, tell these stories from our older generations, particularly those who are there. And this was a great opportunity for me and for you to archive these stories, because now the
Yes.
story can't be erased.
Exactly.
Right. That's a perfect way to wrap this up, too. That kind of sums it all up. So I want to thank you both. Ty, good to have you back on the show. And Brandy, good to meet you. And hopefully when you've got your next feature ready or you've got this in a feature form, we'll get you back on.
All right, sounds good.
I could see me working with Brandy at some point in time.
Yes.
Oh,
I was
great.
actually thinking that while you were
Yeah.
talking. I was
Yeah,
like, this
yeah.
might be my next film partner.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see
There
that.
you go. I'm a matchmaker right here. I love it.
I'm telling you, my partner, Annette Banks, Brandy, we gotta the 3 of us gotta talk at some point together because she's amazing. You'll love her. Talk. But August 9th, guys, at the Vinegar Hill Theater in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I may have a third film. I may show Pine Grove.
Footnote.
I'll have a link to my interview about the Pine Grove School on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
But that would be a bonus. That's why I really want to promote what Brandy and I and my partner are doing.
Well, it's always nice to have a little bonus teaser. I want to thank you both again and wish you good luck on the film festival.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Today's discussion featured two directors of short documentaries that'll be screened as a sideline to the Indie Short Film Festival, which runs in Charlottesville in March. Uprooted, about the black community that was displaced for the building of Christopher Newport College, and The Price of Resistance, Salah Uddin, an American agitator, about a civil rights agitator, community leader, and former Pittsburgh city councilman. I'll have a link to the festival on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
The Bad Guys 2. The bad guys are struggling to find trust and acceptance in their newly minted lives as the good guys when they're pulled out of retirement and forced to do one last job. The Naked Gun. Akiva Schaffer, one of the Lonely Island guys, directs this new version of the satirical comedy, letting Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson stretch their comic muscles. Omniscient Reader the Prophet is a South Korean action fantasy film based on the best-selling web novel. Sketch starts August 6th. When a young girl's sketchbook falls into a strange pond, her drawings come to life and her family must reunite to stop the monsters.
TV and streaming.
Chief of War on Apple. Jason Momoa plays a Hawaiian nobleman who was involved in the island's internal wars in the late 1700s. Momoa also created the series. King of the Hill on Hulu. This popular animated comedy was canceled in 2009 after 13 seasons. Creator Mike Judge is back 16 years later when the characters have aged appropriately. Wednesday on Netflix, Jenna Ortega returns for a second season as the Addams Family crime-solving daughter. This time, Lady Gaga is in the cast. I opened this podcast with a note about the Hitchhiker Effect that's going to be playing on August 9th, and we're going to meet writer-director Zach Van Eck on next week's show. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.